Hello, MotoAmerica fans. Welcome to this latest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I am Bice, and I'm joined by our communications manager, Paul Carruthers. And we have the rare pleasure of speaking on this podcast. We talk to him all the time, but on this podcast.
We do it yearly.
Yeah, we do. We did it last year with our chief operating officer, Chuck Aksland, who we did talk to about the schedule last time, and it's schedule time. So we're gonna talk to Chuck. But before we do that, I want to mention again, we're at New Jersey Motorsports Park. We've kind of put this one in the can, so it's going to run a little bit after our New Jersey Motorsports Park weekend. So we can't really say how everything went or what happened because it's Thursday prior to that. But when this runs, we'll know what happened, and we'll go from there, I guess. Chuck, thanks for joining us. The schedule is something you're kind of working on year round, isn't it?
Pretty much so. But don't we get to talk about the weather first? Because every podcast I listen to, you guys talk about the weather.
We don't want to talk about it for this one.
Yeah. Well, again, we'll know what it was like, but we're hoping it veers off course.
I think it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful today.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I knew you work on it. It's not just something you kind of do around. So it used to be when we would go to, or any racing organization would go to a venue, there was always something that would come out about, okay, we've renewed the contract, or we're going to come back there next year. We don't quite do it that way, but you do talk to these tracks when we're on a race weekend at their event. Is that right?
It just depends on the situation. Some of the racetracks we have multi-year agreements with, but certainly juggling the dates and the venues is probably one of the most challenging things I think almost any promoter goes through.
Right.
It's not easy, especially when you're bringing new tracks in. It's just it's not fun.
Right.
And I know we can't even talk about it today because it's not even decided yet. But the difficult part, it seems for me now, is like we have so many classes and they're good and they all have popularity, and yet we can't have them all at every race.
Yeah, and this was something that really posed a challenge last year for the first time, because we would go to some races and some classes would race one time. We'd bring Junior Cup and Twins out to Laguna Seca, and most of the riders were on the East Coast, bring them all the way out west, and they'd each race once. So, the issue there was they all wanted to race twice. So we tried to accommodate that starting this year, and anybody that raced, with us, we tried to have two opportunities to do that, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. So that does add complications because we have too many classes for the amount of hours in a day.
Right.
And so we had
like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. So we had to kind of do some splitting, and, I think in the beginning, not too many people were happy with it. I think Stockhausen raced 5 events this year, 10 races. But in some aspects, Junior Cup was more or less a East Coast series this year, and we saw the participation grow from 16 to 18 to 30.
Right.
We've had sometimes. So there's pros and cons to all of it, and it's I don't think we're going to make 100% of the people happy. We just try and do the best we can with what we're given.
It feels like from our point of view, what we do with the press conferences and media and everything is 5 classes on a race weekend seems to be a pretty good sweet spot in terms of what we do. So obviously we have more classes than 5, but 5 seems to work pretty well most of the time. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that, because if you try and we've done it in the past, we've had 6 and sometimes 7, I think, even. Yeah. But then to me, it interferes with the fan activities you have going on at the track. We're getting a lot of people that come out for parade laps and for the autograph sessions, and we have a lot of things to do now at the races, the kids' carnivals and stunt shows, and so if you just have 100% racing on track all the time, there's not the opportunity for people to get up and go, visit the other things. So
yeah,
5 is a good spot. Everybody gets a break during the day. We still have to have enough flexibility in the schedule in case there's red flags or, conditions that delay the program. Man, when the schedule is packed tight and you run into problems, it's an issue for those guys in race control for sure.
I think this MotoAmerica is a little bit of this idea, give the people what they want. And I know we respond to what the fans like and want. And we've done that with classes we've had. But let's talk about a track that since MotoAmerica started in 2015, everybody every year is like, what about MidOhio? What about MidOhio? Well, we're going back to MidOhio. And you tell us the process behind that. I believe you visited the track after Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that I think Paul on our weekly calls, he summed it up best. It's going to be interesting to put out a calendar, and the question's not going to be how come we're not going to MidOhio.
Right.
It's going to be the first time ever. But the biggest hindrance for us going back was obviously the condition of the racetrack and not being able to race in the wet. And I kind of got wind at Laguna Seca, Jesse from Disrupt Racing. He had a guy there working with him who's actually an instructor at the school. And he said, hey, they might be making some improvements, so you should start talking to them. So, being that is a fan favorite, I got in touch with him after Laguna. And we went and looked on the Monday after Pittsburgh and got a good idea of the plans. And it was interesting because we took Jason Prigmore and Chris Ulrich along with myself and Dan Argano. And one of the biggest issues as well was the guardrail, being too close to Thunder Alley and a couple other places. But it's funny, Jason and Chris are kind of looking and they're like, I don't remember it like that. And then come to find out they moved that guardrail probably 7-8 years ago.
Wow.
And but still the hindrance was the condition of the racetrack, and they're making some improvements to that, and which is going to allow us to go back.
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer in the history of MidOhio, and Paul knows this. There was a time before they repaved it where they had a lot of concrete patches, and those were interesting because there was edging to it. But the riders, it turned out, actually preferred that to this last pave because, as Josh Hayes says, he says it feels like the track is alive when I'm on it. And it's interesting that Paul got a quote from Josh for the press conference because I know Josh likes that track and loves everything about the fans there, but he wasn't a fan of that surface. So we're all obviously all anxious to see what the repave is going to be like. When is the repave supposed to be done? Do you know?
I don't know exactly, but it'll be done by the time we get there.
Okay,
that's all that matters.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And I mean, we've seen the response already. It's just been like crazy good.
Yeah.
I mean, if everybody that emails and tells how excited they are actually shows up at the race, we'll be good to go.
It's going to be a great event for sure.
Yeah. But it's true. I mean, they just like the emails are just nonstop.
Right.
And the response to the press release and all that
and the racetrack had the same comment to me this morning. They're just, the response is great. And I think he showed us some articles from the local press is engaged in it. And so, really looking forward to going back.
Yeah, the media in that area really supports that track. I know with IndyCar there, I mean, there's a lot of coverage for that. And I remember in the past, they were pretty good about Superbike racing and all our classes. But, and of course, I'm a fan because it's 45 minutes from my house. And Chuck, you didn't know this, but I actually moved to Ohio because of MidOhio.
Oh, you did?
I took a job with an ad. I did.
You learn something every day about this guy.
I took a job through a headhunter with an ad agency in Columbus just so I could be near MidOhio because I used to be near Loudon, and I know we're never going to be able to go back there, but I just loved MidOhio so much, and then it went off the schedule, so I'm pretty psyched about.
So I guess the big
back.
question is, are you going to stay in your own bed?
Well, I could. I could. In fact, our group does Airbnbs. I don't know if I have to turn my house into an Airbnb or not, but I don't know how my wife feels about that. But
the bigger question is, you're not going to move to the Isle of Man, are you?
No, I don't think I'll do that. I don't know.
And we won't be racing at the Isle of Man.
Yeah, that's right. But of course, that MidOhio is a big deal. As far as the schedule goes, and we haven't seen it yet. I think Paul has seen it. Are there any other surprises? Let me ask you: is VIR on the schedule?
No, VIR is not on the schedule. We tried, there's date conflicts and we couldn't make it happen. That's something that comes up every year with Kerrigan, and we have that discussion, but we just can't land on a date. That's just part of the whole jigsaw. Once they put something else on our date last year, which prohibited us from going back, or this year, I guess. It's just hard to find the right slot to fit into all of our other, events. Mm-hmm. So we'll keep working on that and see what the future brings. The event that's not going to be a part of the schedule next year is Pit Race, and which is unfortunate. Yeah. We like going there.
Yes.
I'm not going to say we'll never go back there. I hope we can make some arrangements to get back at some point, but it's just not going to work out for next year.
And it doesn't have to do with when we got Pittsburgh, it was like the MidOhio people came over to Pittsburgh, it felt like. And so now we got MidOhio back. That doesn't mean they don't cancel each other out. It's just a different reason for Pittsburgh not on the schedule.
A little bit of a different reason that we didn't actually get resolved, but having I think they're within an hour and a half of each other, yes. 2 hours maximum.
Yep.
And kind of where Pittsburgh, actually MidOhio is going to be on the date that Pittsburgh would have been running. So to have those two kind of back to back wouldn't have really made sense.
Right.
And But no, it's a great place. We Jim and Kathy that own the place are great people, and hopefully it'll open up for us to go back in the future.
People have to remember too, like we're not the only game that's in town that's trying to get racetracks. I mean, there's car racing organizations, there's track days, there's all kinds of stuff, and the pool is pretty limited on really good racetracks.
Well, racetracks only have a certain number of days, and there are a lot of
damn winter gets in the way.
The winter gets in the way back east, anyways.
It
right?
does, yes.
Even in Laguna Seca, winter time gets in the way. But there's a lot of competition out there for dates.
Okay, so we're going to Daytona. Is that a difficult event from your side?
I think the first year was difficult from the challenges we had the weather and all that. This year I thought went pretty smooth. We had a lot of controversy in the end with the 200, but it was great racing. And to watch all the bikes, I just love watching them on the bank.
Yes.
I was watching the 200 the other day actually on TV, and it's Twins Cup class was on MotoAmerica TV. And just happened to catch it, and it's cool. There's everybody in the draft and stuff. So the Speedway, I think that first year they didn't know what to expect from us. We didn't know what to expect from them, but they've been great to work with, and we're good friends of them too. And their goal is to continue to build that event up, and I think had a big improvement this year over the year before with spectators and so forth. So some good momentum, I think, going into next year.
So with the addition of MidOhio, mostly the schedule's pretty much the same then, at least as far as where we go.
Pretty much. Brainerd's going to stay on the schedule, and that's actually going to follow Road America. So it'll be a little bit, it won't be in August, I guess, is when we ran this year. It'll be in June, which according to the track is a better time of year actually up there.
Smaller mosquitoes.
Smaller mosquitoes, yeah. They don't have as long to grow, much time to grow. So the rest of it's pretty much the same. We'll be ending the year back here in New Jersey about a week later than now, I believe. We'll go back to COTA. So the last 3 races of the season will be MidOhio, Circuit of the Americas, and here at New Jersey.
Okay, well, that answers a question for me, because I was going to ask about Circuit of the Americas, whether we were going to do another standalone or we're going to go with Moto GP. We did the standalone this past couple weeks ago. Heat was a factor, obviously. I'm sure it affected a little bit of the attendance, but you saw enough to say, well, let's do another standalone next year.
No, for sure. If you want to kind of compare events, although it didn't look like it, you could almost compare COTA to the Road Atlanta.
Wow.
Road Atlanta is a smaller venue. It looks more crowded, but it was not far off of that.
Wow.
There were a lot of people up in the suites, and their main parking lot was completely full.
Okay.
So it was a good event. We had a good vibe, I think, in the paddock with it. DJ and all the different activities going on. So the people at Circuit of the Americas, Bobby Epstein and Reed Atherton and that whole group, I think, were impressed about the show that we brought. And I'm excited for next year.
Yeah, that's good to have that where it is. I think I enjoyed it being separate, and it's not that I have anything against MotoGP. It's just nice to have the facilities to ourselves, and we can go where we want to and do what we want to do, and our fans can do the same.
Yeah, and I think we did see some comments from fans that they enjoyed that freedom of walking in the paddock and meeting the riders and all that. So
yeah, and that's such a big thing about our series, Chuck, is this idea of the open paddock. Let's talk about that a little bit, because it drives me crazy sometimes with Formula One or these sports where they keep their teams, their drivers away in these ivory towers, and you don't get to see them. And if you do, it's like a big deal. And I get
you spend a lot of money to see them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you're privileged to be able to do that, and it's a privilege to meet our riders. But if you come to our race, you can see our riders. It's wide open. You can walk through the paddock, and all our riders, to a man and a woman, will sign autographs and do anything they want. That's a real difference about our series, wouldn't you say?
Well, I think you're likely to bump into riders, Superbike riders and bagger riders. But I think the other good part about that is you could, most of the canopies are open. So, you're watching the mechanics work on the bikes and getting them prepared for the next session and all of that. So I think that is quite unique.
Mm-hmm. At COTA, it was funny because I was in that cooling off area they had like on the way to the media center.
Yeah.
So Jake Gagne was walking through, obviously, to go to the bathroom. And I watched some little kid like tugging on his dad's shirt, like he couldn't believe like Jake Gagne just walked past him, but that doesn't really happen everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just...
I just love the fact that, we encourage our fans to go up and talk to any of these riders. They're not going to turn you down. They always like to talk to our fans out there, because they know it's the fans, you fans, that do it for us. So it's so important to our series, and it's grown every year since 2015. So
I think one of the things I think we should be proud of, and some of it's luck and some of it's not, but I mean, there's 7, I wrote about it in the press release that went out this morning. There's 7 championships, and there's a possibility of all 7 of those being won by 7 different
that's amazing.
It really
I don't
is.
know that I've ever seen that.
No, it's incredible.
Okay, so, we have a spec class in there. Okay, so whatever, but
yeah, you knew Royal Enfield was going to win their class.
Yeah, they're
right?
pretty much a shoo-in for that. But,
Yeah.
but the other one, I mean, it's cool. There's like a Yamaha Superbike. There's a Suzuki Stock 1000. There's going to be Harley Davidson baggers. There's Indian. Yeah. So I mean, it's just, when I saw that, I was just like, wow, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this before.
Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that either, for sure.
It speaks to parity for sure. The other thing, I mean, this is a couple weeks after we were at New Jersey. I got to keep that in mind. But as we talk to you, I want to ask you about this. So the previous podcast to this, we had Dallas Daniels on. Of course, he raced in our series and then he went to AFT. He really wanted to get back into road racing and he's going to want to continue that. And also this weekend, Michaela Moore, who was a champion in Build Train Races, racing in Junior Cup. It's cool that we have riders that come back from other disciplines and also riders that are moving up from, it's kind of I don't know what you call it, if it's a demonstration class, Build Train Race. I know it's real racing, but she's going to be a professional, if you call it that. I mean, you got to feel good about that we're showing these rungs in the ladder that people are moving into and stepping up.
No, and I mean, the biggest example of that is Brandon Posh. Wasn't he our first KTM Cup champion or whatever? Now he's a superbike racer.
Yeah.
So, he didn't follow all the steps exactly, but, guys have the opportunity to go from twins, for Junior Cup to twins to Super Sport on up. So, and it's great to see Michaela, taking that leap in the Junior Cup. And, she's got a great style. She does everything correctly on a motorcycle that you could see. So I'm interested to see how she does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also funny that, I forgot what I was going to say. It was funny.
Must have been a lie.
No, it's good to see. Well, it's what I was going to say is it's interesting that the paths they choose to take, and the Junior Cup class obviously is where you're going to enter, but then some have gone to Super Sport and some have gone to Twins Cup. The Twins Cup amazes me because it used to be, when we first started, it was like an old guys class.
Yeah.
And then now it's like evolved into like your young kid coming from Junior Cup class.
For sure. Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. And the racing's been excellent.
It has been good. The other thing I want to ask you about, Chuck, is, of course, recently we had the announcement that Mission King of the Baggers is going to be in Europe in some way, shape, or form. We don't know what that's going to be yet, but they're going to form their own kind of thing based on that. So we were the prototype for that. Can you talk about the global popularity of Mission King of the Baggers, and personally how you feel about King of the Baggers and where it started and where it is now?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
No, but to take King of the Baggers to Europe, basically we have a relationship with Stuart Higgs from the British Superbike Championship, and we've been asked by some sponsors and the manufacturers, hey, can we take this thing abroad? And it's pretty difficult to try and run a European series from over here, and so we made an agreement with Stuart to really start off with a fact-finding mission. One, the press release did draw, a lot of interest on his side, and he's exploring some different opportunities over there. Whether we have a series next year or one race, or we don't know yet. We try and talk every couple of weeks, but we'll see how that progresses. But certainly somewhere down the road, there'll be a King of the Baggers Europe version. So
would it be? It'll be in with British Superbike then somehow?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Before we did the agreement with him, I reached out to a couple of promoters, Claude Mitchie, who does the French Grand Prix, Lee Van Dam, who promotes Assen, Moto GP race. They all have different types of events, other than just Moto GP at their circuits. And so, there was some interest from those guys, to put it with, I think Claude Mitchie promotes Spa, the 24-hour. So there's some opportunities for some support races at other places, but I think over there you could have a standalone King of the Baggers hooligans type event in Germany that turn into a big Oktoberfest party type thing, So
yeah, I mean, American VTwins are a big deal in Europe, right? I mean,
100%.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to Jeremy McWilliams, that war is Harley Davidson, but I mean, Indians got a big presence over there. It's cool that they really embrace those
and nowhere
motorcycles.
to race them.
Right.
up till now.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But back to King of the Baggers in general, from where we started at Laguna Seca to now. I mean, you got to feel pretty good about the fact that we're doing these 2 race rounds, and it's a legitimate championship. The riders that are in it are hugely talented. The development of the bikes is incredible. I mean, give us your assessment so far.
Probably certainly not what we expected at that first race,
right?
The first
right.
round, because it was like, let's try this, and we did it, and it's been a lot of work, to be honest. Those are bikes that aren't race bikes by any means, but they have evolved into race bikes. And credit to both the Harley and Indian engineers. Last year we kind of set a target for them as, hey, we can't have these things blowing up. We have to have availability of the parts so dealerships could, build teams up and build these bikes. And so we come up with a rules package to go into effect this year, and we actually tried to bring back, detune them a little bit, put some rev limiters on them. And, it was our surprise. Probably the biggest surprise of the year is when they turned up to Daytona and they were going 10 mile an hour faster with all these restrictions we thought we'd put into place. So it just shows where, they're still taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
And I've told both manufacturers, I hope you don't go another 10, because they're going to be doing 190 miles an hour at Daytona. It's pretty sketchy.
It's crazy.
But no, they're... it's clearly a fan favorite. It's very popular. It's got a good packet of riders in there. It's championships coming down. It's 3 guys that could, any one of them could take it. Second year in a row, right? Last year was winner
3
take all.
3 different personalities for sure.
Yeah. And I said Indian and Harley, both of them have done a great job to try and keep the reliability there, but also try and spread it out so there could be more teams in the future.
Well, speaking of more teams, we see this comment sometimes. This is an American big twin Harley Davidson versus Indian rivalry, and that's what the series is all about. We occasionally get people say stuff like, "What about the BMW? What about the Yamaha or the Honda?" What about that? I mean, would it affect the purity of this American thing that we've got going? Or have you entertained the idea?
We've talked about it a little bit, but that's kind of the debate, right? I mean, if you had a Honda V-twin go out and beat Harley and Indian, what would that turn the whole thing into?
Right.
We don't know if that'd be a good thing or a bad thing or what.
Right.
I guess that's a wait and see. I say
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of fun with the V-twins, especially that Coda going down the front straightaway, just the sound they make. So
Yes.
I think it needs to stay a V-twin type category, but that's one for debate. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
As far as the idea of it going in Europe, is that kind of a mandate from their formula of King of the Baggers? Is it American? Is it Indian versus Harley Davidson there too?
Well, it's our decision at the end of the day.
Okay.
And basically they would use our rule book and implement what we do here. So
I think that's what would be the appeal there, more so than even here.
Right.
Because they just love anything American. And those big V-twins, nothing's more American than a bagger.
Right.
So I think that, that's really where the appeal would lie.
Yeah, for sure. And we've talked about this before, Chuck. I am unabashed in my love of Twins Cup. I love it. I loved it from the beginning, but I certainly love it now. I love the tuner side of it. I like the fact that a lot of riders have been involved in it. And we mentioned it seems to be a step up from Junior Cup if they don't want to go directly to Super Sport. It's pretty viable. They have a good number of entries. It seems like that one's off and running and doing okay, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. From where it started, I think this is the 4th year or something, or 5th year.
Yeah.
But I remember the first race, at Road Atlanta, there were like 8 entries, and Wayne's going, "What are you doing?"
Well, it was Chuck's idea.
Exactly.
He lost 5 pounds in sweat just watching 8 guys go around.
Yeah. Well, then it got hugely popular, and then it was Wayne's idea. And
I gained all my weight back. I think it's a great class. It's a good stepping stone, like you said. It's super competitive, and there's manufacturer interest in it, both Yamaha and Aprilia, and we hear. There are a couple other manufacturers that want to join the fray, so we'll be working over the winter to see if we can make something happen there.
Wow, good. Yeah, it seems like it's, I don't know, chicken or the egg, but there are more manufacturers that are creating these twin-cylinder middleweight bikes. And even some of the other, doesn't BSB have are they going to have a Twins Cup?
I think they're starting one next year.
Starting one.
Yeah, next year.
So it's proliferating around, and we kind of did proof of concept on that like we have with Mission King of the Baggers, too.
Yep.
So Super Sport. how are you feeling about the balancing that's been going on with that? It seems like it's been pretty good. I mean, Xavi Flores this year, I know he went on that 8-race win streak, but it wasn't easy for him, and he's a world-class rider. So what do you think?
Sometimes you judge if we're doing the right thing when everybody complains about it. So everybody, no matter what bike they're running, they complain that their bike's at a disadvantage. But to me, on paper, they look, I know where they are on the torque curves and RPMs and all of that, and they're all right there together.
Right.
So I do think some racetracks suit some bikes more than others, and we've seen that a couple of times this year. But I'm happy with where it's at. At
COTA, Nolan Lampkin clinched the Superbike Cup, and we're in hindsight now because it's after. He was presented with his $25,000 check, I believe it is, for
first. It'll be presented here.
Yeah, presented here, but I'm saying we were recording this
before.
Because we're 2 weeks ago. But yes, it's going to be presented here.
It's back to the
future.
In the
past.
And part of it is we didn't know who the third place winner was going to be. I think that's still to be determined this weekend after, even though we're after the fact. Yeah, this future, past, present. So what's the status of Superbike Cup? Is it going to exist in 2024?
Yeah, we don't have any plans to change it.
Okay.
I think it's a good formula. There's not as many participants in it as there were last year, I don't think, but we still want to have that as an avenue where stock 1,000 guys could get a taste of Superbike, and they're not just out there spinning their wheels and burning up rubber. They have some incentive. So,
but it's okay if there's less of them because they went full Superbike. Because that would be the idea.
100%. Yeah.
So if you just had 3 or 4 or 5,
get them involved in a Superbike class, and hopefully they enjoy that and see it as a path forward.
Well, dude, I love you for that, because Superbike Cup, Stock 1000, I think those are great. And
you think everything's great?
Well, I do, but Stock 1000, our entries have been crazy. And it's like, I mean, if we had all them in Superbike, I get that. But I mean, Stock 1000 Hyper leader bike is pretty impressive anyway as it is. So it's a great way for them to understand how to ride that bike and move into Superbike. So I think it's a great step.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I think we've run out of time. Chuck, it went fast with us, but let's do this again next year.
I'm available during the season too. So.
Oh, okay, there you go. 5 times a year.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, there you go. Thanks for joining us. The schedule, I think, have been out by now, or will be out around this time. We had a good time at New Jersey. Everything was fantastic. It may have rained, I don't know, but anyway, it's good to have you fans on and keep watching us. Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.